Vintage guitars have always been a bit expensive, but it seems recently that prices just keep going up with no signs of going down. It's just not an easy hobby to get into, especially if you don't have like $125,000 just laying around. And even your 70s era guitars also are in these $1,000 and up ranges. And don't just think I'm bashing Chicago Music Exchange for those prices. They're honestly the most reliable place to get vintage gear. I even got my first guitar from there, being this Jazzmaster. And Reverb's another good place to find vintage gear, but again, it's going to be around the same price as Chicago Music. So then you have to ask yourself, what do you really want in a vintage guitar and what are you willing to pay? So for me, I knew I wanted a Fender Mustang style body, preferably from the 60s or the late 70s, and I didn't want to pay more than $800 as a extreme maximum. And you're probably saying $800 seems incredibly unrealistic for vintage guitars, but I am cheap, so I'm going to find a way. And just as an example to show that it's possible, this Mustang sold on Reverb for $550, and as you can see, it's a vintage 60s or 70s model. And this listing, as of the time of me making this video, was just a couple of weeks ago. So between checking on my computer and checking on my phone, I scour the internet looking for one of these style guitars. And here's what I mean by the Mustang style guitars. You have the obvious, the Fender Mustang, you have the Duo Sonic, the Musicmaster, and the Bronco. And all these guitars have the same body shape to them. But the main one that I want to focus on, because it's the main point of this video, is the Musicmaster. And in particular, the third version of it. There's actually not a whole lot on this guitar, at least from what I could find. All I really know is that they were made from 1977 to around 82, and that the paint, for some reason, sometimes didn't adhere right to the guitar, which leaves some crazy checking on some of these models. And the pick guard is the same one as a Bronco, but it has a neck pickup only. But the other night, I was looking up to see if any of the 1970s Mustangs had the old 3-bolt style necks, and I ran across this. It was a listing for a late 70s Fender Musicmaster, and it was only $749. And when I saw this, I immediately started looking over every little thing about the guitar. The first thing that jumped out to me is that it doesn't have the original pickup, but that's not that big of a deal. That's something that can be easily swapped out. I also noticed something interesting about the bridge saddles. Almost all of the vintage Fenders that I see with barrel saddles from the 60s and 70s have these threaded barrels. However, this one had these more standard looking barrels. But I was able to find a few other Musicmasters with this exact same bridge, so I'm not really sure if that's just how they came stock or what, but it wasn't that kind of jarring to me. But what was jarring to me was the headstock. As you can see, the tuners are the 70s style chrome tuners, and the Musicmaster logo is somewhat pretty big. And you can also see the stamp on the headstock right there. However, this Musicmaster that I was looking at had the classic 70s styles tuners. The Musicmaster logo is a bit smaller, and it doesn't have the stamp on the headstock. Instead, it has a patent number. So I did a little research, and here's what I found. The headstock on this 1974 Musicmaster looks identical to the one that I was looking at. And this style of headstock stayed on the Musicmasters until '76, and then Fender swapped over to what the '77 models have. So here I was, looking at this guitar, knowing that it's somewhat of an oddity, and it's a vintage guitar in the price range that I wanted to pay. The only thing that I really had to ask myself was, did I really want to buy this right now, or do I just want to wait and see what happens? So I laid in my bed for literally around 3 to 4 hours, just contemplating on whether I should get this guitar or hold off. And the whole time I'm laying there, I'm thinking about this Mustang that sold instantly for $550, and I knew that the next day, if I didn't react quick enough, this Musicmaster was going to be gone in an instant. So at 2 o'clock in the morning, I just picked up my phone and said screw it and purchased the guitar. So while I was waiting on this guitar to be shipped to me, I kept doing research. Something in me told me that this guitar was going to be a bit off, but not like in a bad way. I looked back at the original listing to see what had been original and what was replaced on the guitar. I'm not surprised the nut was replaced because I've seen where the original nuts on these Musicmasters cracked due to them not being properly fitted into the neck, so that's not a big deal. I also noticed where it said the bridge had been replaced. I know this is not referring to the actual bridge plate, so maybe that's just referring to these barrels, but again, I saw some other ones on Reverb listed with these exact same barrels, and they looked to be all original. That was just something I was kind of looking into once I got the guitar in hand. But the electronics might have not actually been replaced. Fender was using CTS pots in the 70s, so these very well could be the original pots. It's just because they're not Fender labeled that Music Go Round thought that they were replaced. This was just another thing I was going to have to look at once I got the guitar in hand. But this neck was still confusing me because this was not a 76, 77 and onward neck. But then I stumbled across this. The Vintage Guitar and Bass website had a bit of a timeline for the Music Masters, and that's where I found this image. These are pictures of Music Masters in a 76 catalog by Fender, and they have the Bronco style pickguard. The necks are the same as all the other 76 Music Masters I've seen, but the pickguard is what's throwing me off. All the Music Masters that I've seen from 76 have the more traditional Mustang setup in terms of pickguard and the chrome plate, not the Bronco style pickguard. The Wikipedia page on the Music Master talks about how Fender would kit bash these guitars using what they could find to manufacture them. So now I had a few different theories on why this guitar was a bit different. My first theory is that the neck was replaced. However, I don't know how true that one will turn out to be, especially seeing as how this is an older neck. My second idea is that this is a super early run of this style of Music Master, which is why it has an older neck. And the opposite idea to that is that this is a later model, which is why it has an older neck with a newer body, just Fender trying to scrap together what they could to get this one out. I wasn't going to get any more answers until I got the guitar in hand, so I just had to sit back and wait for it to ship and to arrive to me. So I was super excited to get the guitar in hand. I know that 70 Fenders get a bad rap, but man, this one's sweet. Whoever had this originally or before me must have loved it because there is a lot of wear and tear on this thing, but in ways to show that it was played and not just abused. The headstock on this thing has aged fantastically in terms of wear and tear. This one peg on this tuner is a bit crooked, so I'm going to have to fix that, but that shouldn't be that hard to get back to normal. These things have definitely seen better days, but they still work just fine. Now, one glaring issue you'll see is the string tree. This is clearly not the original, but I've ordered a replica one. It looks just like what would have came on an original. The grain on this fretboard looks fantastic. It's aged really nice, and I like how the pearloid little dots have aged as well with a bit of an off yellow color. And whoever restored the frets did a really good job as well. They play and feel really, really good. Here you can really see all the scratches and beats and bangs at the front of the guitar. I mean, it was clearly loved by whoever had it before me. And you can really see the wear on the back of this thing. It looks like it's been ran over by a car, but it's just from whoever owned it before playing it so much. There's also some random paint on this guitar. I noticed it down here at the bottom with this blue color. And with a closer look on the headstock, I saw some red too. It's on the tuners and on the neck itself. I'm not really sure where that would have come from, but I do have a plan of getting it off. But the usage on this neck, man, I mean, I love a good natural relic guitar just from play, and this one clearly has it. So after my first true look over on the guitar was done, I decided to kind of unscrew some of the parts, not fully taking them off, but just looking underneath the guitar as much as I could, just to make sure the body wasn't original and to see what the deal was with the pots. I'm not sure if you can really see this with this angle, but there are two extra screw holes underneath the plate. That's because this bridge plate was made in either 94 or 97, somewhere in there. And here's what the original bridge would have looked like. It has four screws at the bottom instead of two. I'm assuming this was done because the original might have rusted out. A lot of the bridges that I've seen from this time period look like this. They're starting to get covered in rust, and that chrome cover is just starting to kind of peel off. So they kind of get gross and nasty. And if that's why that one was replaced, I completely understand that. I plan on modifying this 94, 97 one to look just like an original with drilling some new holes into it, but doing it properly, obviously. I'm not sure these pick guard screws are original, but if they are, they are. If they are, they are. That doesn't really matter to me. but as soon as I took off the volume and tone knobs, I knew that these pots were replaced. However, they are two 50K pots. I didn't take a picture of them, but I took the pick guard off enough just so I could see underneath, and I saw 250K on there. And whoever replaced all the electronics did a really good job. I mean, it looks very, very professional. Now, the part that was still confusing me was the neck, so I just decided to take it off, and here's what the stamp says. I believe it reads 490000355. And if that's the case, it was made in the third week of 1975 on a Friday. It was also, I'm assuming this means inspected or made or whatever, by R. Bush, whoever that is. So if you know anything about him, let me know in the comments. And from what I can tell from the serial number on the inside of the body, this was made in 78. So is this neck the original neck that came on the guitar, or was it replaced? I personally think it was what came with the guitar, and I'll tell you why. There are these two screw holes in the body, and they perfectly align with these two screw holes on the neck. And I'm assuming this was done by the original owner, or one of the original owners before me, because this looks like it was two extra screws put into the back of the neck. And I mean, I don't know why that was really done, because this thing has like fine neck stability, like it isn't loose or anything. But I find it to be a bit of a coincidence that these two holes line up perfectly on each, well, being the body and the neck, and they're not matching. And let me know in the comments if I'm wrong, or if that's something common with all these necks. I don't really know. I'm not an expert on Fender, especially vintage Fenders. So just, again, let me know. I could be right, I could be wrong. I'm hoping I'm right, but who knows. Also notice while putting the guitar back together that a lot of these screws do not match. Like the neck screws are not all the same, so I'm going to have to replace those as well as the ones on the bridge. It's kind of weird. I've never seen a guitar have this many mismatching screws, but it does. But that's okay. It's an easy fix. And here's a quick little demo on what the guitar sounds like right now. The pickup in it sounds fine, but it's not what I'm really wanting. With that being said, I will definitely repurpose this pickup in another build of mine if, whenever I get the chance to do so. So yeah, like I said, it's not a bad sounding pickup. It's just not what I'm really going for because I want this to sound like an original Musicmaster from the time. And ignore all that clutter in the background. I'm actually working on one of my old Fender Mustangs and I plan on making a video on it, but I've had to pull out all my parts and as you can see, I keep them in like a McDonald's Halloween bucket. So, gotta do what you gotta do. So now that I've looked over the guitar and everything, I've ordered all the parts that I need in order to try to make it as close as I can to its original condition. And I don't know when all those parts are going to come in. I'm assuming by at least the end of the week, I'll have at least one or two of the parts, and probably next week, I'll have the rest. Just depends on how, shipping goes. But still, I plan on doing a part two video with this guitar, and in it, I'm going to add all the new parts, do a bit more of a deep dive into each part, showing the inside, especially of the guitar, and a bit more on the neck. That way, I can hopefully identify it better to make sure this is all the original in terms of the neck and body being together. I'm sure there's people out there that could help identify that too. But outside of like a few demos, I can't really find that much on Music Masters on YouTube, especially these later 70s and early 80 models. So I think it's kind of cool just to document it too for anyone out there who's kind of in the same boat that I am or just want to know more about the guitar in general. So if you want to see that part two, just either keep up with the channel or subscribe. I'm not going to heckle people to subscribe. I feel like that's really cheap. So I'm not going to do that. But yeah, thanks for watching. Look out for that part two, as I said, and I'll catch you in the next one. Also, I keep forgetting about this freaking thing. I made an Instagram account for the YouTube channel. If you want to go check it out, you can. I will be posting probably a few pictures of the Music Master updates on there, but probably not like a ton, because again, I'm making a video on it. But yeah, check it out if you want to. If not, that's fine too.